Hi everyone, welcome to Dear BAMf, the show for PR and marketing pros like you, hosted by Beck Bamberger of BAM. BAM is a communications agency that believes stories move the world. We move stories forward for technology-driven brands that challenge, change, and create entire industries. Today, on the Dear BAMf podcast, we're talking with Patrick McCarthy, Head of Market Development at Waybridge. Patrick specializes in advertising technology, product management, strategy, B2B marketing, product marketing, and partnerships. Let's dive in.
Welcome, everyone. This is Dear BAMf, a podcast for PR, marketing, comms, people such as yourself to answer the needling questions and problems that we all face on the daily, I would say, most commonly. And we try to answer them on behalf of a lovely guest panel or so. Sometimes we have two people, one person, whomever. But today, in fact, we have Patrick McCarthy from Waybridge. I'm going to introduce him in just a second, but just so you guys all know, I'm Beck Bamberger. I have an agency called BAM. We work with incredible startups doing wonderful things in the world, from supply chain, health tech, etc. And I'm also the founder of One Pitch, which is a platform that helps for better pitching for journalists as well as PR folks. So with that, Patrick, as I mentioned, you're the head of market development at Waybridge. Welcome, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Beck. It's great to be here.
Yes. Tell us a little bit. What is Waybridge?
So Waybridge is about a 18-month-old company at this point. We are a startup whose mission is to bridge the gaps in the global supply chain, making it more efficient, resilient, and sustainable. That's our overall big mission. But from a tactical perspective, we're really building a technology platform that helps companies who, mine, manufacture, create, produce all of the types of products that we use today. All those companies really trade and transact metals and agricultural products and various things like that. And we're really helping digitize that industry. They do a lot with email and spreadsheets and really old technology. And it's really time to digitally transform that space and really help improve a lot of the efficiency and sustainability problems that we're seeing today.
That's great. There's quite a bit in the supply chain that is environmentally impactful that I don't think people totally know and realize, which is great. I'm glad you guys are on it.
It's been really eye-opening, I think, over the last couple of years with COVID and with a lot of the weather situations that have been occurring across the world, how much of an impact it can have in getting the actual products and things that people need, to their doorsteps.
So true. Well, tell us what you're most proud of in accomplishing, say, in the last 12 months. I know you're kind of new at Waybridge, so getting a new position is one thing, but what else?
I think personally, probably what I'm most proud of is learning a new industry. I was new to the raw materials and supply chain space, so I feel like I've gotten up to speed pretty quickly, which is a good personal accomplishment. I think for the company, maybe a cliche answer would be to say that we're proud that we just raised a Series B round and, from successful investors. But I think the real thing that we're actually proud of is we launched our initial version of our technology platform. We've got some customers live, and you can see our team's faces light up when you hear a customer using Waybridge for the first time and saying, oh my gosh, this is going to make my job, my life, my day so much better.
All right. I love that.
We started to hear that, and it's really, really exciting. It really gets us all pumped up and gets everyone motivated to go, work even harder every day.
Oh, that's great. Oh, nothing's better than when you get that and you hear how a client, someone who's paying you money, is like, oh my God, thank goodness. I love it. It's amazing. So I feel you.
It's true, because oftentimes the person at the company who signs off on working with us is not necessarily the same person who is essentially maybe forced to change their way of working and change the processes that they've been doing for 15 years. And it's like, hey, you've got to use this new technology now. And as you can imagine, there's a little bit of hesitancy and skepticism. And then to have that person actually go from a skeptic to being a champion is the best type of thing that you can experience.
So good. Oh, love the skeptics. Did I even say that? The skeptics. There you go.
Yeah.
There we go. It's been a long week already, Patrick. All right.
They all
That's
are.
okay. That's true. What would you say is your favorite way to tell a story, especially in a market like, okay, commoditized metals, commoditized goods, supply chain, etc.? Or maybe you have something back from previous times in your career.
Yeah. I think that, especially being new, I'm about 9 months into this space. As you can imagine, being in a marketing role and trying to figure out all of the lingo and all of the competitors and all of the trends, I found it all to be extremely buzzword heavy and extremely similar from website to website and company to company. I couldn't tell what anyone was doing differently from someone else. And to be honest, Waybridge isn't there yet with our marketing, and that's why we're working with a great PR firm such as BAM.
Hey.
Shameless plug. What I'm excited about doing very quickly soon here, and what I've also experienced in some of my past B2B companies I've worked for, is cutting through all of that by really telling true customer stories, right? Like, my favorite way of telling a story is having a customer tell it for us.
Oh, for sure.
They're less likely to use the buzzwords. They're less likely to resort to marketing lingo. And they're much more likely to just say, this is how this product helped me. This is how this product changed my day. This is how it made me more money or saved me money or whatever it might be. I am chomping at the bit to get some of Waybridge's customers out there, telling the story of how our technology has made their world better. And I know that I personally find that as kind of the best way to really tell a story and really trust a company when I go look at their website or I look at their marketing material, is to really see what their customers are saying and thinking about them.
Mm-hmm. There's nothing like the first party responses from people who are like, oh my God, I used it, it did this, this, and this. Because you're right. There's not going to be like, well, it's a multi-integrated platform that allows me to, no. No one's going to speak like that. So they're going to be like, it saved me money. It helped me get the job done. I never thought I could do. It took 18 months before. Now it takes 2, whatever. That is just fantastic. Love it. Well, we have quite a few questions here today, Patrick, to figure out. So let's read our first one here and see what we got. Let's do it. All right. Dear BAMf, our CEO is interested in commenting on a trending topic that several other CEOs in the space have already commented on. How can we differentiate our viewpoint insight to entice media to want to speak with us when our viewpoints are similar and not polar opposite to the commentary already shared by others? Do we leverage data? What other assets can we provide to make us stand out?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think this goes back to what we were just speaking about, which is, do you have customer stories that you can tell regarding this topic, right? Do you have, data, like they suggested, data is always a great thing to work with, becomes more trustworthy, especially if you have unique data that only your company has a view into. That can definitely help differentiate a little bit from what all of the other CEOs in the space are saying. I really think having a story here opposed to a viewpoint is really important. I think one of the other things that I've seen, this really depends on the capabilities of your CEO and the guts that they have. But often even even if you're similarly aligned with the perspectives of the other CEOs, taking a little bit of a more controversial or aggressive spin on that, can create a lot of interest. It can be a little bit risky. It can definitely provide a little bit of spice and a little bit of oomph compared to what seems like today. A lot of CEOs are extremely careful about what they say.
For good measure.
Yeah. I'm not suggesting to say something that's too out of bounds, but something that's just a little bit, whether it creates a little competitive tension or creates just a little bit of something like that can really allow a reporter to grab onto.
This is a classic case of just shutting your mouth when you do not have anything to add.
Ooh.
So I'd really say, yeah. Ooh, yes.
I like
so Patrick.
That's a controversial response to mine.
It is a bit. But in all honesty, if you have nothing to add other than I'd like to hear myself talk, why even raise your hand? And that will not be of interest as well. So a little bit of me too, meaning not the movement, but just let me try to get in, squeeze in to add into my same comment is not too compelling. So rather, if you're totally in line, there's nothing avant-garde to say here, then pick something, wait for something else that would be, that is. The only other thing I'd say to that is to the person who wrote in about, do you have data? Do you have something? Yeah, if you've got, instead of just, here's my comment, but instead, here's my case example. Here's what happened to X client, or here's what happened to this manufacturer, or whatever, exhibit A, where it's factual. And now you have a built-in story of, here was this problem, here was the solution, we wrapped it up with a bow. That is going to go a long way. So if you don't have the data, proprietary, or you don't have the first person exclusive stories to yourself, which are coming from your clients, and you don't have anything to add that's distinguished, pass. And wait for something else where you're like, oh, wow, I do have a very distinct view on that. But then that's a whole other laundry list of things to consider. So I actually wrote up a piece. Now I'm thinking of where I put it. It's on Ad Age, I believe. That was, or on Forbes, on a little matrix of, when should you say something as a CEO? There's all this stuff happening all over the world now at such high levels. So when is it big enough for you to comment on? When should you comment on around your values, etc.? Because now I think for the first time really in recent time, CEOs are at a place of the scrutiny of saying something or not saying something and getting scrutiny if they say something or they don't say something. It's an interesting time.
Yes, very, very interesting time.
Now as I talk about that, that would maybe be the only caveat is if this is something of a topic that demands response, and even if it's very similar to what other industry heads have said, but you feel compelled you must say something about what your position on this is, then okay. That'd be maybe the only thing. But in that case, you're not doing it for media. So I think that it absolves it from this question, because this person is asking about, how do we get into media? So that's very different.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to is this really the right angle for you to get coverage?
Exactly. Or is this more of an internal comms scenario that you need to leverage and use? Okay, next question. I think we got that one, Patrick. Dear BAMf, my startup is Ireland-based and is in need of a U.S. presence as they expand to North America. With only a few offices open in the U.S. and little visibility, how can we further solidify their offerings to compare them with well-known competitors who already have a footprint in the U.S. media? They have customers willing to advocate for them, but most are not U.S.-based.
Very interesting.
It's a little challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, I really probably could use more information on this one in a couple of different ways. Being Patrick McCarthy, I feel like I should comment on an Ireland-based company. I would say that similarly, I hearken back to, is it possible to, one, I would ask the question, your opinion on this would be more accurate than mine. Does the US media not care about international companies? Does a company have to have a strong set of customers in the US to get the attention of the US media?
Ooh, good question. I'd say yes to some extent, because there's a big difference between Volvo or BMW versus an Irish-based company that has two Irish-based clients and that's it, and it's not known enough. So if you're saying you have international companies, you're dealing with Toshiba, okay, well, that's an internationally known brand. SAP, something, but that's US-based. So it depends on the scale of the international client, but what I'm inferring from this, we don't know exactly. If it says compare them with well-known competitors who already have a footprint, they have customers willing to advocate for them. So I guess the question would be, who are your customers? How big are your customers?
Yep.
Are they internationally known?
How long would it take to get some in the US? If you've got a few offices in the US, it seems like they should be able to get some US customers and therefore have those customers advocate for them.
Another angle here is this something, and I have to say US media is very US centric, that is for sure. There is not so much paid on European things happening of sorts. There is a lot of coverage, at least on national media, about what China is doing and supply chain stuff there. But that taken out, one thing that maybe could be considered here is the broader why, the broader story of, is something in Ireland going on that is resonating in any way, shape, or form in the US, politically, economically? Is Ireland eating our lunch on something in the US, or is the US trying to aspire to be something like in Ireland? The first thing I just thought of was, okay, there's been, now this is a little dry, but it's a big deal for the people who cover it media wise, this whole corporate tax rate. Are we finally going to get on the same page internationally about a corporate tax rate? Because people like Apple have been sitting in Ireland getting the savings that makes it good to be in Ireland versus the US, of course. So is that the bit, can you tie it in somewhere like that, that makes more Ireland the star and the why, which is why the US should pay attention?
Yep. And I know there's a lot of companies in the US that are also, besides the tax reasons, there's also a good labor market in Ireland. So I know a lot of companies here. So yeah, maybe it's possible to attach themselves to an issue that the US media actually has a little bit more interest in. But I know, from my experience at AppNexus, where we were a New York, US based company, but expanded globally very rapidly and very successfully, when we got media placements in local countries or, in different countries, it almost always was associated with landing an impressive customer in that country. And so I think it was, and I know that's sort of a little bit of a chicken and the egg thing of, well, how can we land important customers in the US if we don't have any US media presence? But I think that just goes back to good old fashioned sales efforts, right? Like you gotta be able to go in there and sell someone even without having shown up in that country's media. For example, we go into Germany and sign a company like Axel Springer. And then the German media would say, wow, this company from the United States just signed one of the biggest German media companies. Let's write an article about them. I think that approach would, is I think pretty tried and true for how to get some exposure from the US media is sell harder and sign some customers.
I do like that point of like the chicken egg. Yeah, exactly. You want to get the US customers, but you have no press to show them in the US. So therefore, how do you get the, oh God. It's more common than you think.
Yeah, got to be able to sell well.
I like it. Yep. Go ahead, sales team. You better hire well on the sales side.
Yep.
Exactly. Okay. We got one more question. Dear BAMf, after announcing our latest funding round ahead of competitors, there has been an influx of new startups claiming to provide very similar offerings to our target demographic. How do we get ahead of the increasingly saturated market we now find ourselves in to establish our brand as the ultimate leader in the space? Oh, classic situation, I think.
Yes, definitely a classic situation. I think that one, is the brand actually the ultimate leader in the space is one of my first questions, right? So there's a difference between you are the leader versus you're trying to appear to be the leader. But this reminds me of when I first started paying attention and kind of learning about PR and media. And, I was watching Salesforce. So at this point in time, Salesforce was an upstart company, definitely had some buzz, had raised a few rounds of capital. But as I started watching, Salesforce seemed to put out a press release almost every day about a new customer that they had signed, a new award that they had won, a new executive hire that they had made. On one hand, you could call that annoying. On the other hand, it portrayed to me such a sense of momentum and inevitability of their success that they became, in my mind, as someone just kind of watching and a potential customer, they became the leader in the space in my mind. Like, look at this, they're signing a new customer every day or every week or whatever it was. And so even though there were similar offerings, I just was so impressed with their customer momentum that it really, portrayed them in my mind as the leader in their space. And so I would go back to the same thing, which is like, you can't really fake that, right? You actually do have to be signing new customers and doing those sorts of things. But I do think a way of standing out is really highlighting all of the success, highlighting all of the momentum, and putting in that extra effort really can kind of help you break through the noise a little bit by showing real proof points instead of just doing a lot of marketing, right? Like that was the difference. It wasn't just that they were marketing. They were actually on a really ongoing basis, like a drumbeat, showing proof points of how they were succeeding. And that was really interesting to me.
They are not shy. Salesforce, that is the machine that it is. That's how you buy buildings in downtown San Francisco. So this person who wrote this, yay for your latest funding round. That is wonderful. It is now on. Game is on. And this is so classic. That's why I mentioned that. Of like, yes, of course. If you're being splashy, the bell is rung already on the competitors and who's going to become the Uber and Lyft. Because it's going to be one or maybe two, probably in your space. Obviously, we don't have context of the industry, so there's that. But they did say it's a saturated market. So what does that tell us? Okay, one, maybe three tops. There's only one Amazon. There's only two Uber and Lyfts. There's, one Airbnb compared to hotels. So anyway, this is the natural economic flurry that happens with this, where the winners are on. And I'm assuming if you're taking venture money, you want to be the one that gets out first and IPOs or gets acquired and so forth. So what we've seen in so many classic times is the media well that you can build or tranche can really be, as I like to say, a competitive moat. So you need to dig that moat as fast as possible. As obviously I'm biased here coming as the PR person, but if you can dig that moat deep and as far across as possible, it's very hard to catch up to organic earned media. Because everyone can say the same marketing message. Everyone can spend a lot of times when it becomes a money race, the same amount of dollars. And whomever beats that and maybe clicks and things, that can be toe-to-toe. Messaging can be toe-to-toe. Marketing can be toe-to-toe. But earned media, you can't snap your fingers and in 48 hours replicate what a competitor is doing. So I encourage this person to consider what are those other defendable moats that can happen. VCs love that. Of course, they always are looking for, well, what is a defensible moat here? Is it your technology? Is it your patents? Is it a customer base that's a certain community that no one else has or whatever it is? Use media as one of them if we're talking about just the marketing sphere. And maybe there's some other things possibly here. Can you somehow create a community of some sort? Just yesterday, we had someone on who was talking about Facebook groups. I was like, what is this, 2005? But Facebook groups, I mean, they are pushing that hardcore because maybe that's where Facebook eventually lands is, okay, we have these very niche communities that exist in these groups and their groups are quite dominant, to tell you the truth. So is it that? Like, what are those other things that you're going to be able to carve out? Because race is on and the race is not going to stop now until there's the winner. And so the race is on.
Yeah, absolutely. And this person does specify that they are kind of ahead of their competitors with their fundraising round. So it does sound like they've got a little bit of a leg up. So I agree with you. I think getting out there, getting aggressive, finding that way of marketing themselves and building that moat could be really powerful.
They did say the ultimate leader in the space. Well, race is on. Person. We wish you the best.
It's exciting.
It is exciting. Well, Patrick, we have come to the end. We've solved all the problems for today. They're always fun and exciting. We got to talk about Ireland and competitive moats and topics of what to talk about and what not to talk about. Always a good time. Yeah, thank you for being on here.
Thanks for having me on. It's great to talk about this stuff and hope everyone has a lot of marketing success.
I love that as a sign up. Hope everyone has a lot of marketing success. You know what? Maybe we need to have a little tag at the end of this. You know how some of them, like My Favorite Murder they give Elvis want a cookie. They give a little dog thing, or no, it's a cat. Anyway, the cat eats a cookie. We need to think of something like that. May all your PR dreams come true. How about that? We'll use that. We'll use that.
Yep.
There you go.
Love it.
Thanks for listening to Dear BAMf, the advice podcast for PR and marketing pros like you. Our show was created by BAM, a PR and marketing agency headquartered in San Diego and New York City. The music you're enjoying today was composed by Tiffany Dizon, produced by Daniel Kessner, and played by San Diego Symphony's Art of Milan. If you have a tough PR and marketing question you'd like us to answer, write to us at bamtheagency.com/Dear BAMf. Don't forget the F. If you'd like to get notified of our latest episodes, subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts and review us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.